Anywhere between 5 and 7 years old when I first experienced any type of sexual abuse.
My cousin and all of us would stay together, and I remember one night getting woke up in the middle of the night by my uncle.
I felt guilty. I felt like it was my fault because I could have done something, because I didn't hit him or scream and wake people up.
Two numbers, 1 in 6, roughly 17%, and 1 in 4, 25%. Those are numbers that hurt my head because I can't seem to get my head around what they mean. But the more I try to understand them, the more I come to realize those numbers, they hurt my heart. So what do they mean? Research from the Centers for Disease Control tell us that 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls will be sexually abused before they turn 18 years old. And it's a research-based guess, because there's also research that tells us that 30% of sexual assaults are never reported to the police. So that's as close as we can get to the actual numbers. I pray that those numbers are too high. But I also fear that those numbers may be too low. But right now, they're 1 in 6 and 1 in 4. That means 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls feel dirty. They feel worthless. They feel abused. They feel guilty. They feel forgotten. And sadly, too many of them feel responsible, as if they did something to provoke their abuser.
In junior high, I was at a friend's house and we were watching movies. Most everyone was falling asleep. There was a guy there, and I liked kissing him. I liked cuddling him. He wanted to do more. I told him no. And of course, more happened. I didn't know until I was older that the body's natural response is to shut down in that sort of situation. So I didn't know that I was molested or sexually abused. I felt guilty. I felt like it was my fault because I could have done something, because I didn't hit him or scream and wake people up. It was my fault, and I carried that for a very long time.
Can I just say something right now? I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you feel dirty because you are not. I'm sorry that you feel worthless because you are priceless. I'm sorry that you feel guilty because you've done nothing wrong. I'm sorry that you feel vulnerable because we did not protect you. And I'm sorry that you feel forgotten because you deserve better. I'm sorry. You did nothing wrong. Let me say that again. You did nothing wrong. This is not your dirty little secret. If anything, it's our dirty secret that we let you shoulder this as long as we have. And I'm sorry.
I was too ashamed to tell anyone. I didn't have open dialogue with my mother or any adults. It was sex is bad, don't do it. So I didn't feel comfortable talking about it, nor did I know how to articulate what had happened or what was going on. How did I feel? Why? How did it happen? I just assumed it was my fault, and that's how it was.
Over 15 years ago, a lady walked in on her husband sexually abusing their 3-year-old daughter. And this was a mom who wasn't willing to accept that this was just a dirty little secret that we just don't talk about. This is a woman that called the police to report what she saw her husband doing to their daughter. And I was the officer that answered the call. And standing in her living room, hearing her tell me what she walked in on was difficult. And I definitely wasn't prepared for her husband to walk in the room next and tell me, I'm not denying anything. I need help. I've got a problem. So I loaded him up in my car and took him down to the police department where I could interview him. He waived his right to an attorney. He told me, he said, I need help. And for the better part of an hour, I sat across the table from this guy while he unpacked years of abuse that he had done to this little girl. And the police officer in me needed him to keep talking because it was all being recorded and it was all admissible in court. So I needed him to keep talking. But the dad in me, the dad who's raising two beautiful girls of my own, wanted to come across the table at this guy with the things he was telling me. The cop needed him to keep talking. The dad wanted to shut him up. And here's the real tragedy. I arrested that man. It's one of the most satisfying arrests I've ever made. And he's still in prison today, getting all of the help he asked for, courtesy of the state prison system. But the real tragedy is you arrest him, and his daughter is still left with baggage, still left with abuse, still left feeling dirty and vulnerable and forgotten, still left with the fact that she was sexually abused by the one person in this world who is supposed to protect her the most. You see, when you know one of the 1 in 4 or 1 in 6, this becomes very personal.
Anywhere between 5 and 7 years old when I first experienced any type of sexual abuse. I didn't know that it was sexual abuse because it wasn't something that was physically done to me. It was more so the things that my parents would expose me to. And it was either, sitting me down and putting on pornography and saying, this is how you were made, it's okay to watch, tormenting me when I would scream and turn my face to the TV. Things like, their sexual behaviors between each other were so public. And so, like, my mom would bring me out in the living room after preparing my father for what they were about to do. And I would scream and turn away, and she would, circle me around and, point me to them, and just not giving me a choice of what I wanted to be exposed to, and opening things up that caused nightmares and dreams that I would be ashamed of the rest of my life because I couldn't control that stuff.
As a police officer, I've been asked numerous times to come in and talk to various groups of kids, and the topic that I'm given most times is what they want to call stranger danger. You see, I used to go in and tell kids to avoid strangers because they might try to hurt you, they might try to abuse you, they might try to take you. And I would paint the stranger into this boogeyman that they should be afraid of. I don't teach stranger danger anymore because I read the research on who's really abusing our kids. And the research that tells us only 10% of the time are our kids abused by an actual stranger. That means 90% of our kids are abused by a friend or a family member. Abused by someone who is supposed to be watching out for them. Someone who is supposed to be protecting them. So you tell me, who's the real boogeyman? Is it the stranger that accounts for 10% of our abuse victims? Or is it the friends and family that account for the other 90%? But in that research, I also now understand why this is something that we want to sweep under the rug. It's really easy to prosecute a stranger for abusing our kids. It's much harder to talk about what my uncle did to me, what my dad did to me, what your best friend, mom or dad, did to me. That's a much more difficult conversation to have. And it's in those conversations that I'm told this is something that we should just let go. And that makes me feel dirty and worthless and vulnerable and forgotten.
When I was young, I had to stay at my grandma's a lot, where didn't have a lot of money. There was a time when my mom and them didn't actually have a job and they couldn't keep us in the house for a small time. So I was staying there, and my cousin and all of us would stay together. And I remember one night getting woke up in the middle of the night by my uncle, who was he was just a teenager at the time. And he woke me up with a shot of water, like a literal shot of water, choking me. And so I woke up and I was like, what are you doing in here? And he just started touching me. And I didn't really know how to respond. I don't know that I was necessarily scared, but I was just frozen. And in that moment, it was confusing to me because he was touching a place that had never been touched before. And so it was hard because there was a part of me that was like, this feels good, but I know this is wrong. What's happening? I just didn't know what was happening at the moment, honestly. And I just remember him saying, don't tell anybody. And he walked out the door. And I really didn't know how to respond to that. And so I kind of told my cousin what happened, and she said that it was happening to her too, except more severely with her, that he was doing other things with her. And we decided that we were going to tell our family. And when we did, we sat down and talked to them, and they pretty much said, you all are ridiculous. This is stupid. You all are just looking for attention. And that's what I thought. I thought that it was stupid. I thought that it wasn't a big deal. I shouldn't have been saying anything. I still knew it wasn't normal, but I just thought if a grown-up doesn't think it's a big deal, then it must not be a big deal. So I didn't talk about it.
So if you are the 1 in 6 or the 1 in 4, I must say again, I'm sorry. But this is not a dirty secret. This is not something that you can just bury down inside of you and hope it'll go away, because it won't. You try to bury a secret like this and it'll leak out into your life, and it will poison every area of your life. And the longer it stays buried, the harder it is to talk about. So if you are 1 in 6 or 1 in 4, can I encourage you to talk to somebody? Start with a friend, somebody that you trust. And if you're not the 1 in 6 or the 1 in 4 and someone comes and talks to you about this, you need to go with them and find an adult that you both trust. Because this is too big an issue for you to unpack on your own with a friend. There are people who can help you get rid of this secret, uncover this secret so it doesn't poison your life. And I'd love to tell you that you guys are going to go and talk to an adult, and the first adult you talk to is going to believe every word and be the superhero that saves you from this secret. But I also know there's way too many adults out there that aren't comfortable talking about this, that still see this as family issues that's not their business, that still see this as a dirty little secret. Can I just encourage you, if you run into an adult like that, that you just find a new adult. It's not your fault they're ignorant. Just find an adult that will listen to your story, that will take you seriously, and that will get you in touch with the people that can help you unpack this in a healthy way. Because you are not dirty, you are not guilty, you are not forgotten. And it's not a secret anymore. You've been wired to believe all of those lies. Can I invite you in to a rewire?
You have something inside of you that needs to come out. I would say find somebody. I know now that just because I told one person and they responded improperly, and it was an improper response completely, I know that now, that you find somebody that you trust and tell them what you need to tell them, because that person will help you. They will help you, whatever steps that you need to take, whatever needs to come next, they will help you. And I think that it's very important, because the time that I found somebody to tell that was the right person to tell, that I could trust, and that, wasn't trying to protect themselves or wasn't trying to, my family was trying to save face. My family was trying to, it was a problem bigger than they knew how to deal with, so they just didn't deal with it. And that was wrong. And so when I found somebody that told me for the first time, that was wrong what happened to you, and I'm very sorry that happened to you, and they could empathize with the fact that somebody hurt you, and that was so wrong. Just having somebody do that with me was the first step to recovery in any way in my heart. If I had somebody say to me, Alicia, that was wrong what happened to you, and I'm so sorry that happened to you, here's what we can do, I don't think I ever would have ended up in the club. I don't think I would have ever ended up doing a lot of things that I did, if I had felt like it all wasn't my fault in some way, and that, I just had so much guilt, and it wasn't even mine to own.
I would say if you're experiencing any type of sexual abuse right now, there's so many feelings that occur with that. Feelings that cause shame and guilt, feelings of fear, and then feelings of, of things that are being aroused in you that you don't even know how to deal with. I would say just find somebody really healthy to talk to. It helped for me to find people who were living out the values that I wanted to live by. Somebody who doesn't just talk about a good life, but that you see has a happy, whole, and healthy family life. Talk to them immediately and just start surrounding yourself with people who live that life, because it is out there. It is rewarding and freeing and joyful. But when you're only surrounded by stuff that's happening in your home and surrounded by friends who have the same things going on, it becomes your normal, and it is not normal.
The thing that has helped me the most coming through sexual abuse is understanding that it is that, and it's okay to call it that, and you don't have to carry that shame. It happened. I can't go back. I can't change it, and it's okay. But it doesn't define me.
Hi, my name is Ked Frank, and I'm the director of Refuge for Women. We work with victims of human trafficking and sexual exploitation. The topic of sexual abuse can be challenging, as many of you listening right now have experienced this violation. The reality is that some of you have never told anyone, and this may be the first time that you are considering opening up about your experience. I want to encourage you to take that bold step and let someone know of what happened. You see, the pain of the experience doesn't go away by ignoring it or just trying to move on. At the Refuge for Women, over 80% of our residents have been victims of childhood sexual abuse. The common factor amongst all of them is they didn't tell anyone, and the pain just got tucked away. That pain sent them on a journey that caused even more pain down the road. As you move into your groups and talk more in depth about this issue, today could be one of the best days of your life as you trust a group leader or a school counselor with this part of your story. I encourage you to do so. You'll be really glad that you did.